criminal trial against disgraced R&B superstar R.Kelly. Federal prosecutors here in New York have been arguing that the singer was a ringleader, what amounted to a criminal enterprise, using his fame to sexually abuse, control, and transport women, underage girls, and men. We bring in ABC News consultant Brian Buckmeyer now for the latest. Brian, we heard today from a sixth accuser. What did she say?
Yeah, so this sixth accuser is going by her first name, Faith. Her last name will not be on the record. This is a unique accuser because she's the first one who's accusing R. Kelly of not statutory rape, because she met him when she was 19 years old at a concert in Texas. She talked about an 11-month relationship that she had with R. Kelly and a few shocking admissions as well, that one time he forced her to give oral sex with a gun close by in a very threatening and menacing manner. But also, this is the second accuser who's talked about R. Kelly giving her herpes. Talked about that relationship, talked about having cold-like symptoms and then having sores all over her mouth. She said that she confronted R. Kelly sometime after the relationship ended when she had herpes, and R. Kelly said, "I'm not going to talk about this over the phone. If you do want to talk about it, if I do know anything about this and you want to talk about this, we'll do this in another way." So it became very damning and connected not only her allegations to R. Kelly, but corroborated what so many people have already said on the stand.
And it's not just women and girls making these disturbing allegations. Brian, tell us about this male accuser.
Yeah, so in the indictment, there are two John Does. It's similar to Jane Does, but males instead. One of them testified already earlier this week. He testified under the name of Lewis. He talked about being a rising rapper himself, meeting R. Kelly at a McDonald's drive-thru when he was 17, and doing someone a solid or a favor, and saying that he would pass a number to a woman that R. Kelly was interested in. That relationship started off pretty well. R. Kelly invited him to the studio to lay down some tracks and rap over a beat, when it slowly changed when he invited him into his garage, which was also his boxing ring, and R. Kelly asked him if he had any fantasies. Now, as a 17-year-old boy, he talked about fantasies of being with one or more women, and R. Kelly then asked the question, "Have you ever fantasized about being with men?" Because at that point, that the John Doe, Lewis, testified that R. Kelly gave him oral sex. That relationship continued, as Lewis said, because he wanted to become a rapper more than anything else. He became very close with R. Kelly, both in terms of sexual contact, but also playing basketball with him on multiple occasions. He spoke about the harsh rules and punishments he gave out to women, but also the defense brought up the fact that he was charged with bribing a cooperating witness against R. Kelly, and that seemed to be somewhat damaging, but overall, the prosecution had a strong case with that witness.
And the prosecution, as I mentioned, trying to paint this as a criminal enterprise. That's the basis of the racketeering charge there. So they're claiming R. Kelly had an MO, or a pattern of behavior, that ties all of these claims together?
Absolutely. So R. Kelly's MO is to use his title, his bravado. He was the king of R&B at a time. And so when women and sometimes young men would come to his concerts, or he would see them out in the streets, he had this practice of either giving notes with his phone numbers to those associated with him, or keeping them on his own and handing them to individuals so that they can contact them later on. He, of course, had a orchestra of people around him, whether it be runners or producers or executives, who would coordinate flights to and from his concerts to ensure that these accusers were at his hotels or at his concerts or in the green rooms. And that's the enterprise in which the prosecution is trying to drive home, that he had this MO, as we were saying, to prey on these people associated with his fame, and then kept his organization tight-knit to make sure that they were flown to and from and kept under lock and key.
But the defense, Brian, of course, laughing off this argument that R. Kelly ran this so-called criminal enterprise. What are they saying?
Yeah, so enterprise is a very strong word. When we talk about RICO, we're often talking about a criminal enterprise, where an individual may be just one part of moving guns or drugs, for example, or hiding a body. When you think of like a mob criminal enterprise. But when it comes to simply passing on a phone number to a girl to meet R. Kelly, I mean, many people have done that. You go to a bar, you see someone who is interested in one of your friends. I, as a married person, do this all the time. Hey, my friend is single. He thinks you're attractive. Here's his number. I'm not a part of a criminal enterprise, and that's not the purpose in which I am trying to connect these two people. The defense is trying to draw that correlation, that this is just simply R. Kelly doing this on his own and not the enterprise in of itself, connecting these young women and girls, as well as a boy or two, for the purpose of sexual gratification. The defense is trying to split hairs with the criminal enterprise. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job of it. They may or may not be successful.
And Brian, any clue about how long, or any guess about how long this trial could last?
At its onset, this case started on August 18th, and the judge said that this could take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. It appears that the prosecution is really pushing through a lot of their witnesses, so I would gather that it'd be closer to the 4 or 5 week mark, but there's plenty of testimony to still come out. Yes, 6 of the accusers have testified, but we're still waiting on one more John Doe and multiple other parties or witnesses who can talk about more of this RICO charge, the connectivity of this enterprise in facilitating the sex crimes that R. Kelly is accused of.
Brian Buckmeyer, lawyer, legal analyst, our ABC News contributor.
This is insane. This crap's insane, man. For real. It really is. Because it's you enter a garage, right, with R. Kelly. He asks you about fantasies with women. All right. What are your fantasies? You say you have fantasies with women. Then he says, hey, you ever have fantasies with men? At that time, it's time to run away. It's time to leave. It's the time to run with flames behind you. Because how so fast you're running away from R. Kelly. Not the fact that you let him suck you off because you wanted a rap career. He's not a victim. He's not a victim. Sorry. Man testifies against R. Kelly in sex trafficking trial. After several days of testimony from women claiming they were sexually abused by R&B star R. Kelly, a man testified that Kelly exploited him in the same way. How? You let him... New York, after several days of testimony from when women claiming they were groomed and sexually abused by R. Kelly, a man took the witness stand at the Kelly sex trafficking trial in New York City on Monday to say the R&B star exploited him in the same way when he was a high school student. The witness testified in federal court in Brooklyn without using his real name, told the jury how Kelly lured him into Chicago area home 2007 with false offers of helping him with a fledgling music career. Kelly asked the alleged victim, then 17, what I was willing to do for the music. The witness said, he replied, I'll carry your bags, anything you need, I'm willing to do. That's not it. That's not it. He said. R. Kelly responded before asking him if he ever fancied about having sex with men. He described how Kelly then crawled on his knees and proceeded to give him oral sex, even though I wasn't into it. So you couldn't punch R. Kelly in the head. You couldn't have slapped him and ran away. Afterward, he told me to keep between him and me, he said. In a later episode, Kelly snapped his fingers to summon a naked girl from where she was hiding under a boxing ring to give Kelly and his witness oral sex. The man told the jury. He kept seeing Kelly after that because I really wanted to make it in the music industry. So the thing is like you sacrificed your well-being and your mental health for a music career. This seems to be the theme among some of these women, and you're now seeing with the men, that they're willing to sell their dignity for a music career that this person that you're trying to get from can easily just be like, nah, I don't feel like giving it to you. Now what? You're left with these emotional, psychological scars for the rest of your life. Not to mention, even if you did make it to the music business, you might end up destroying yourself because it's gonna be very hard for you to wake up and look at yourself in the mirror because you're gonna be wanting to do drugs just to block out that incident. Okay. The witness was testifying as part of a cooperation agreement stemming from his guilty plea in a separate case, alleging he was part of a botched scheme to bribe a woman to not testify against R. Kelly. No charges were brought against R. Kelly related to that scheme. Kelly, 54, has repeatedly denied accusations that he preyed on victims during a 30-year career highlighted by his 1996 mega hit, I Believe I Can Fly. His lawyers have portrayed his accusers as groupies who are lying about their relationships with him. Earlier Monday, a woman testified that Kelly sexually assaulted her at age 17 following the performance in Miami in 1994. The witness also testified without using her real name, claiming that Kelly's cronies took her and a friend to his dressing room after the show before he pulled down her shorts and forced her to have unprotected sex. She said, I was in complete shock, she said. I didn't know what to say at all. I basically went blank. Afterward, she and her friend unlocked the door and ran out of there, she said. On cross-examination, defense attorney Devrix Kanik pressed the witness on why, after someone allegedly raped you, she waited more than 2 decades to contact law enforcement. Because I didn't want to feel the shame, more shame and trauma. This is sad. No one called the police. No one went to the hospital, but they found Gloria Alfred. Remarkable, isn't it? Kinds of reminds me of McMartin preschool case. No evidence, just lots of hysterical people making nonsense claims. He kept seeing Kelly after that because I really wanted to make it in the music industry, he said. This is so sad thinking that you have to endure this just to make it in the music industry. Exactly. Okay. If a man's trying to force you to accept oral sex from him, fight back. You don't have the thing. This is sad, man. This is sad. And people are willing to subject themselves to this just to make it in the music business. Okay. And earlier Monday, I'm reading this one over again. Earlier Monday, a woman testified that she and R.Kelly, all right, I read that already. The witness also testified without using a real name, claimed that Kelly's cronies took her and her friend to the dressing room after the show before he pulled down her shorts and forced her to have unprotected sex. Wow. Good God. Where are the cronies at that time in 1994? Who are his buddies? Why aren't they on the stand? The sad thing is like you're going to have a lot of black women, especially mainly black women, that are going to be protecting R. Kelly. You're going to have a lot of them. Not all, but you're going to have a lot of them. And especially some men, too, that are probably going to find a way to defend R. Kelly, which is sick. You're going to, and sad to say, this is part of it in the, in the black community. This is how they are. The majority of them will defend this type of behavior because he could sing, because he could dance, because he can give, and for women, it's because he could give them the tingles between their legs. They'll defend him. There's not only sometimes black women, there's also women, period, who find a man attractive. There was a guy who was a serial killer back in the day, and they didn't care if he was handsome to them, and they still liked him. Never mind the guy was killing people, killing women and putting them in the positions of a pose and then taking pictures of them. Never mind that. Sad to say, this is how things are. Sad to say. All right. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Later.